So I just want to start by saying we know what's happened over the last week. Governor Snyder pushed through a very divisive agenda without thoughtful discussion, without community input, and sometimes without even letting our community into the Capitol. We know that over the next 2 years, we have to stand together. We know that Governor Snyder, at the bequest of wealthy special interests, has pushed an agenda that does not represent middle-class Michiganders, does not represent what Michigan stands for. So we are here today to announce the formation of a broad coalition, We Are Michigan, who will remain vigilant over the next 2 years, explore all the options that are on the table, legally, politically, with our community voices, to figure out how do we bring our state back together. We're going to hear from a host of folks today who represent various parts of our coalition, all who have expertise and can tell a part of the story about how radically Michigan has changed. However, know that because of the nature of how quickly this has rushed through, that today's announcement is about beginning to explore all of those options. We will return with a strategic plan that will bring together the best legal, political, and community voices in our minds to figure out how will we fight back and how we're going to, after the terrible last few days that have torn our state apart, how we bring us back together. So next, I want to introduce Zack Pohl from Progress Michigan.
Great, thanks John. I'm Zack Pohl, Executive Director with Progress Michigan, and really proud and excited to be part of We Are Michigan's kickoff today. This week we saw Governor Snyder reveal his true colors by signing these so-called right-to-work bills into law without having a single committee hearing. And what's worse, I think, is the fact that it took mace and riot gear to get it done. By signing these bills under the cover of darkness behind closed doors, Governor Snyder proved he's not a tough nerd. He's just a typical Lansing politician who's bought and paid for by powerful special interests. Now more than ever, the progressive movement is ready to stand together, and that means reaching out across organizations, communities, and coalitions to fight back and bring Michigan back together. We won't stand down while Michigan is torn apart. We will redouble our commitment to working together to protect Michigan's working families. That means reaching out across the progressive movement to ensure that every Michigander understands what's at stake for the future of our state. Not only are we committed to redoubling our efforts to holding politicians accountable, we're committed to broadening this conversation because we know that an attack on one is an attack on all. Just last night, the politicians that work in this building were in session until 4:30 a.m., ramming through legislation that hurts women, families, and communities. And it needs to stop. With this lame duck session behind us, the politicians that work in this building think they've basically pulled one over on the people of Michigan. They're counting on us to basically give up and go home. But the reality is, our work of rebuilding Michigan is just beginning. We're committed to holding elected officials accountable back in their home districts year-round. And we're ready to fight to protect Michigan's middle class because we are Michigan.
Are recalls among those options?
Well, after the changes in the legislation that were moved overnight last night, we need to make sure that we understand all of the legal and political options that are available. At this point, we're not saying no to anything, but we're also not saying yes, because we want to make smart choices moving forward with a lot of community support behind them.
I think if Labor's going to do this right, they got to go out and get an ad agency like the one that's doing Pure Michigan in Detroit, out of Detroit there. I think that's where they did that, and then I don't know if you remember back a while, they did a merit thing for state employees to get binding arbitration. That also was a failure that wasn't handled right and should have been a little more done for a little more professionally. Probably would have succeeded.
We can't afford too many more failures, right?
Oh, we can't afford any more failures. Zero tolerance.